Okay, so let's dive right into this. The Baltic Sea. It's basically a treasure hunter's paradise. You see, it's got this unique combo of cold water and low salt, which means it perfectly preserves shipwrecks for centuries. But back in 2011, a team found something that definitely wasn't a ship. It was something that, well, just shouldn't be there, sitting silently in the dark. And when the first sonar images of this thing hit the internet, everybody noticed one thing right away. I mean, look at it. Forget old wooden ships. This thing looked like it flew right out of a sci-fi movie. The resemblance was so uncanny, it instantly became one of the biggest underwater mysteries of our time. So how did this whole thing even start? Well, there was this Swedish team, Ocean X, and they weren't out there looking for aliens. They were searching for sunken treasure. Get this, cases of rare champagne from an old shipwreck. But instead, their sonar started painting this absolutely impossible picture on their screens. They found it rusting 300 feet down. Now, just to give you some perspective, that's as deep as a 30-story building is tall. So deep enough to be hidden for who knows how long, but not so deep that we couldn't go check it out. And this thing was massive. We're talking 200 feet across. That is more than half the length of a football field. So whatever it was huge. But it's the details from that sonar image that really make your head spin. A perfectly circular shape? Nature rarely makes perfect circles. Then there were these clean, 90-degree angles and what looked like straight hallways. And maybe weirdest of all, what looked for all the world like a 1,000-foot runway that was carved into the seafloor, leading right up to it. A year later, in 2012, Ocean X managed to raise enough cash to go back. But this time, they brought a dive team to see the thing with their own eyes. And, well, this is where the story goes from just being strange to something deeply bizarre. So before a single diver even splashed into the water, as their boat got into position right over the object, something completely unexpected started happening. Okay, this is just baffling. Every time the boat was within a 200-meter radius of this thing, their satellite phones, their cameras, even their sonar equipment, it all just died, completely shut down. Then, they'd move the boat away and, like magic, everything would flicker back to life. They tested it again and again, and it happened every single time. When the divers finally got down there, they didn't find any smooth, polished metal like you might expect. They said the surface looked and felt like rough concrete. They also found what really looked like a set of stairs leading into the structure, and even a strange, perfectly round hole right on top. So with all this strange evidence piling up, you can bet the theories just exploded. The object's bizarre shape and that crazy electronic interference, it sent people down two very different but equally mind-blowing paths. The ideas really fell into two main camps. On one side, you have the people who believe this is a USO, an unidentified submerged object, which is basically a UFO that crashed into the ocean. And on the other side, the idea that it's a long-lost piece of military tech, a gigantic anti-submarine device built by the Nazis. The Nazi weapon theory is kind of compelling because it offers a possible reason for all the electronic interference, maybe some kind of electromagnetic field generator. But there's a huge, glaring hole in that theory. There are absolutely no historical records that the Nazis ever built something this massive or this advanced. Zero. All right, so let's pump the brakes on the wild theories for a second and see what happens when science tries to solve the puzzle. After all the speculation, geologists finally weighed in with a much more grounded and, let's be honest, a lot less exciting explanation. So what's the scientific take? It all boils down to something called a glacial deposit. The idea is that during the last ice age, these enormous glaciers acted like giant bulldozers, just carving up the landscape and dragging huge rocks with them. And then, when the ice melted, they just dropped them where they were. So a professor named Volker Brickschert at Stockholm University got his hands on a sample the divers broke off the object. And his findings were pretty straightforward. The sample wasn't concrete. It wasn't some unknown alien metal. It was granite, gneiss, and basalt, all incredibly common types of rock. His conclusion? It's just a rock. So according to this theory, the story goes like this. About 14,000 years ago, a glacier scraped this huge rock across the seafloor, creating that so-called runway, and then simply left it there when the ice retreated. Those 90-degree angles? Just natural fractures. And the perfect circular shape? A total geological coincidence. So, case closed, right? It's just a weirdly shaped rock. Well, not so fast. For the Ocean X team and a whole lot of other people, this is where the real mystery kicks in. You've got physical evidence saying one thing, but you have all this instrumental evidence from the boat saying something completely different. And the rock theory? It leaves some really big questions unanswered. And yeah, here are the major sticking points. First and foremost, the rock theory offers zero explanation for why all the electronic equipment repeatedly failed. That's a huge piece of the puzzle you can't just ignore. Critics also point out that the geologists only tested a tiny piece from the very top of the structure, not the main body. And it still really struggles to explain away all those seemingly artificial features, like hallways and stairs. This quote really just gets to the absolute heart of why this mystery is so compelling. It doesn't matter if it's an alien ship, a secret weapon, or a geological freak of nature. The Baltic Sea anomaly has a story, and it just grabs your imagination. And that really leaves us with a final question, doesn't it? Is this whole thing just a grand illusion carved by ice and time? A kind of Rorschach test at the bottom of the ocean? Or is there something else down there in the dark, cold waters of the Baltic? A secret that's still waiting to be fully revealed?